Welcome to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. I've got Scott Widley, Amanda McLean from ClinCapture. Scott is the CEO of ClinCapture, and Amanda's account executive. And then we've got Chris Albert, don't forget.
Hello.
So, can you guys give us a background on ClinCapture? Who are you? How did you get started? I know we were talking a little bit off the air, but whatever you can say now publicly, just so that the audience can learn more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So ClinCapture is an EDC company, electronic data capture. We provide our platform to sponsors and CROs alike. In addition to electronic data capture, we provide eCOA, ePro, and randomization. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit about, in addition to the challenges of the sites, direct-to-patient trials, virtual trials, and underscore some of the new technology we have, particularly in the ePro modules and the eCOA modules.
7 years ago at this time.
Yeah, and I realized I had my glasses on the whole time. So, Scott, you go to way more conferences than I do, so you're more entrenched with industry lingo and what's going on. Chris and I, we're at the site level, so when it comes to EDC, there's nothing really that sites get too excited about. It's just, can it work well, or does it give us problems? Some of the sites that are more experienced, they're now looking for things like CTMS systems. eSource is a big one. And if we can integrate those things into the EDC, it makes our lives easier. But these are not really things that sites still think about, right? Maybe they will in a few years from now, but they're not really thinking about these things. But pharma and CROs are always looking to get more data for their risk-based monitoring and their studies that they're doing, the adaptive design studies. They need that real-time data. So what do you guys do? What does ClinCapture do that I guess is a differentiator from other EDCs?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So I think what it comes down to when dealing with sites is giving the data managers the ability and the clinical ops folks the ability to manage the sites. And so the real features that ClinCapture offers relative to the sites from, let's start with the data management and the clinical operations perspective, and then we'll move into the site perspective. From the data management and the clinical operations perspective, you want to be able to essentially perform your risk-based monitoring at a site level. You want to perform a site-level SDV. You want to be able to control your ECRFs at a site level. You want to be able to have different form versions for different sites. So if you make a mid-study change, you don't necessarily want to rule out that change in the same way to every site. You may wish to have different sites on different versions of your form. And then from the site level, as you mentioned, I think the importance is in essentially understanding those site workflows so that you've optimized your program, particularly if you're using eSource. And I think the first thing to think about with eSource, folks think about eSource sort of as the same thing as mobile, right? eSource and mobile, but really eSource is just the FDA definition of the source data. The source data is electronic source data rather than the technical source being on paper. And so regardless of whether you're typing that into your laptop or your iPad, so long as there's no paper source and you're going direct to electronics, you essentially are using eSource as essentially per your permission, I guess I would say from the FDA. And so the idea is if you're going directly to that electronic device, how do you optimize that workflow now that you're no longer using that paper form, which is sort of naturally optimized for the site?
Does the FDA prefer? Which do they prefer, do you know?
I don't think I'd want to speak on behalf of the FDA or their preference. But certainly it seems, I think it would be fair to say that there have been guidances and things have been published that show a good feeling about eSource.
I thought there was some regulation already in place in which eSource was already mandated.
E-sources. I haven't heard. Are you guys familiar? I haven't heard of e-source being mandated. Now, what you may be thinking of is the way that you're submitting your data. So you're ultimately submitting your data, electronic signature, CFR Part 11 compliance.
This might more have to do on the private side, right? Like full private.
Okay, like an internal policy for a site or a hospital.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but yeah,
Like
not
Mount
necessarily
Sinai,
research.
for example.
Right,
We just
not
met
research.
with Mount Sinai last trip to Manhattan, and they're almost 100% transition to e-source now. And that's indicative of, I think that's like a glimpse into the future for everyone else, because they're usually the first adopters for e-source because they have so many staff members. So it's just easier to get everyone to remotely sign in.
And again, I'm not certain, but I think there's a regulation in some fashion in regards to capturing data electronically. That is regulation. I just can't remember if it's research side or practice side.
Do you guys get into site payments at all?
We integrate with site payments, site payment applications, and you can use ClinCapture for your site payments. We haven't built out that module yet, although we have had a few customers using ClinCapture for the site payments.
Okay. And as far as patient payments and patient-reported outcomes, any patient-facing products?
Absolutely. So the most important module is the patient-reported outcomes, particularly as folks are moving toward direct-to-patient trials. These surveys become more important. Patient-reported outcomes has evolved dramatically over the last few years. The old sort of clunky devices that were popular just a few years ago are going away. There is a lot of movement towards bring your own device, or maybe use your own device in this case, since if you're going direct to patient, you're not necessarily bringing it anywhere other than around your home and your normal life.
So how would that work? Would the patient download an app? And
variety of ways to approach it. The most common way right now is via email. So web-based email surveys, but certainly ultimately it could be app-based. The challenge, of course, with the app is you want to validate it for every single device, whereas if you're validating the email system, then that's a little bit of a shorter hurdle to get over in terms of validation. But ultimately, I think application on the system, a mobile app versus a web app for patient-reported outcomes would have a lot of utility.
now, Amanda, you deal with clients all the time. You guys gave us an excellent presentation a couple months back, so you must be doing this regularly. What is the number one, I guess, need, or maybe the top 3 needs from CROs and then from sponsors as to what they're looking for from you? What are they requesting? And then how do you take that feedback and create new products, or do you innovate on the platforms you already have?
Well, luckily for us, most of the things that they're requesting and the things that are most important, we've already built into the system, so that's always ideal to already have those things.
And what are some of those things?
Those things are versioning, mostly. So every data manager, regardless of if they're working for a CRO or sponsor, wants the ability to implement form versioning at the site level. It makes mid-study changes on those more robust studies a lot easier. So that's a big one. Randomization is a big one. They want to replace any biostatistician or IVRS system that they're paying for, additional to the EDC. Yeah. Exactly.
So they want to integrate the randomization and the drug. Would that be also for the drug dispensing? Because usually randomization, you'll randomize the subject. The system will tell you what bottle or blister pack to go grab if you're the site. So I think you would use the same system for every visit. If it were to replace the IWRF, which I think you guys do, because when we did the presentation, I think they offer that. Okay. Anything else that they're requesting that you don't have, or maybe something else that you do have that they are requesting?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we do have. ePro, again, is a really big one that is requested a lot. We have a lot of customers that are currently using it, and we're able to customize it for what they're using it for.
Yeah.
And it's not just ePro used for patient-reported outcomes. We have eCOA as a whole. So we have animal CROs for animal health that have, it might not be the actual patient reporting the outcome, it might be the pet owner reporting the outcome. We do it in the clinician's office where the doctor is reporting the outcome. So it really is eCOA as a whole more than just ePro.
I see.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely the top three that at least I hear on the sales side for sure.
And are you getting, and this I guess for both of you guys or either one, are you getting a lot of requests from either sponsors or CROs, and if so, which one, for eSource? And then we can get into the virtual trials, the direct-to-patient aspect. Are they requesting these things, and they being the sponsor or the CRO?
What I'm seeing a lot of is less about eSource at this point because it's already getting adoption. Maybe a few years ago, I felt there was more buzz around eSource. What I feel that I hear more about now is EHR integration. EHR integration seems to be the next wave where a lot of the interest is. Of course, it depends on the phase of study. If it's a phase 1 study, of course, there is no electronic health record since they're healthy subjects rather than affected patients. But once you get beyond phase 1, into phase 2 and 3 studies, then you have a patient that has a health record at the clinic, and a lot of folks want to integrate the EDC to that electronic health record. I think that ultimately is the future for in-clinic trials, and then ePro surveys and beyond surveys, direct integration to devices, whether it's your Apple Watch. Or more sophisticated devices, or more maybe sophisticated devices that work in conjunction with your Apple Watch or other sort of device, would be the two pathways that I would see getting the most traction in the future.
I heard one of the bigger holdbacks in that regard was when you're accessing medical records at the site level, that it's very difficult to limit that access, right? So when you have access to the whole patient database, right, is it easy enough from the software side to limit whose data you're accessing, right? What patient, right? I'd heard that's one of the biggest hurdles right now. I just heard this the other day. But oftentimes, when it comes to hospitals and the like, when you get into their system, that they're accessing everybody, right? Opposed to just the individual that's in the study. Right. So, how long until, or can we do that now? Can you do that now at ClinCapture?
Yeah, you can do that now. The trick, I think, is to make sure that you understand the difference between the subject data and the patient data. And the subject and the patient are the same person, but it's their role. So when you're visiting the clinic, you're being treated for a condition. That data that's being used for your treatment, that's not being submitted for regulatory, that's not part of a trial, is the patient data.
Right.
That data that is being submitted for the trial is the subject data. Again, subject and the patient is the same person in this case. So what you're really talking about is being able to differentiate and to have that extra level of protection over the protected health information, particularly that protected health information that is patient data that may not even be or should not even be accessible by the clinical researcher.
So is it just a matter of uploading? I mean, does the site choose? This is all that we want to include? I mean, how does that work?
It's a matter of mapping the fields, right? It's a matter of mapping the field. So something that maybe you're alluding to of sort of connecting. I think thinking of it as connecting one database to the other database maybe isn't necessarily the right way. I would think about it more as mapping. So you're mapping certain fields from one database to the other. and you're not mapping those other fields. You're not sort of just turning that valve and letting the data flow from one system to another. You're really mapping those specific fields that you need.
Vital only, it just captures that.
That's right.
Not this person has AIDS as well. I mean, obviously that would be in the con meds or medical history, but things of that nature, right? Just vital signs go here, and that's all we're capturing.
You're just mapping that data that is part of your protocol for this study.
Now, before we get into virtual trials, how much time we got, Carlos? What are we on?
5 more minutes.
Okay. Before the virtual trials, because I do want to get into that, it's scaring all the sites. I've always wanted to ask, and Chris probably would be interested, when a sponsor requests a new project from you guys, are they interested in the metrics? In other words, can they look at the sites individually and see different metrics?
Yeah,
Like,
good question.
how long does this site take to answer a query, or enter data, or favorite numbers when it comes to fraud? Are sponsors asking you for this capability?
Absolutely, and you mentioned earlier you had seen our pitch deck and had our little characters.
Yeah,
we have a new character we're rolling out.
Captain Fraud.
He's called Machine Learner. We're actually working on not only a business intelligence tool with updated dashboards to show that data, but an artificial intelligence system that allows the sponsor to have some predictability among sites to assist with risk-based monitoring. So that's 2019.
So it's not out yet, but it's
Not
coming
out
out. And so what are they going to be looking at? Like, they'll detect fraud, do you think?
Well, I was thinking more efficiency. Certainly there would be patterns that would show that these findings are not in line with the findings at other sites.
Yeah.
Findings that maybe could look suspicious.
Yeah.
But also just to show efficiencies at different sites, strengths and weaknesses at different sites, not just in a general sense, but specific to different types of trials. One site may do better work at this type of trial, another site may do better work at this type of trial.
So you're going to be tracking all
So you
these
can
things,
optimize
basically.
the site for the trial.
So we're only going to be seeing more of this as time goes on.
Agree, absolutely.
Because as a CRO, like when we're hiring CRAs, I would love to be able to see how much time a particular CRA spent on each EDC page. Because there's no way to know if they're doing their job unless you can see how much time they're spending on the pages. If they're just clicking that they've reviewed everything and they haven't, I mean, you couldn't do that in like 1 second and review properly like multi-data
Great
points,
example.
right?
Is that a capability? Time? I mean, they keep track of time.
You can keep track of time.
Yeah, do they do that now?
Keep track of time. Yeah.
Is that being done now?
That can be done now.
Is it being
It's not
done?
something that folks are accessing now, but that's all there.
It's coming.
That's all there. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, Chris?
Now let's get into what
Virtual
Scott wanted to talk
Virtual
about.
trial.
Virtual trials.
Yeah.
So that's scaring all the sites. Pfizer tried this in 2010, I think, 2011, with the overactive bladder study. Didn't work very well for them then, but we're 9 years from that, and you're hearing a lot more of this than I am because you're at these conferences, right? Are they actually discussing
Yeah,
virtual trials,
I think-
like seriously?
I think it's certainly everyone's very interested in it. Sponsors are interested in it. Investors are interested in it. There's a lot of buzz about direct-to-patient trials right now. It's something that we also plan on focusing on in 2019 and beyond. As of now, ClinCapture is utilized a little disproportionately for late phase and post-marketing studies. So we're already have a large base in that area, and that's the area.
Why do you think
The reason I believe that's true is the larger companies, Metadata is obviously the market leader. The focus seems to be on big phase 3 pharma. I think to some degree they'd like to own the whole cycle, including phase 1 through phase 3. But once you get to late phase, a lot of folks think of the trial as sort of being over. And I guess the trial itself is over, but the process continues. And I think that's a market that's just really underserved right now. And paradoxically, I think that is the market that's going to be the fastest growing in the future.
So are you referring to phase 4 trials?
Phase 4, real world evidence, direct to patient.
The reason I ask is I can't imagine the FDA at this time approving a phase 2 or 3 trial through a virtual trial, right? I mean, you have to have staff involvement, specifically a PI, right? Whereas a phase 4 trial is not really necessary.
I think that's the first place. Yeah,
Do you see phase 2 and 3 trials going this route?
I absolutely see them going that route for tracking. Now, certainly it's likely it will continue to be patient intervention since patients are being treated actively for a condition. So they're going to require that treatment in the clinic unless there's some sort of kind of concurrent trend in healthcare that folks are not only tracking their clinical research studies at home, but we are treating folks at home. But that would be a whole different, maybe concurrent, but a whole different trend.
All right. Well,
So phase 2 and 3 trials are probably safe for 10 more years.
I'd say they're safe for a while.
At least 10 years.
at least 10 years, and by then, who knows? They're going to have in silico trials where they're already doing this. They're creating a digital twin of you, right? Right now they're focusing on brain or lungs or whatever, and they're running virtual trials on the simulations. So who knows what 10, 20 years from now is going to bring. But very interesting, and we love getting other industry insiders' take on trends in pharma. And you guys go to a lot of conferences?
Absolutely, yeah. The ones that I think enjoy the most are DIA in June, and then SCDM, Society for Clinical Data Management. In fact, are you guys coming out?
No, we're having our own conference September of 19, our first one.
In Seattle?
No, we're going to do it in Orlando.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, so we'll invite you guys out there.
Beautiful. Nice. Yeah. So SCDM, I'm actually doing a presentation. It's called Get Off My Cloud, IT Infrastructure, Private Cloud Computing. We're having our awards for data managers. Data managers are sort of the folks that make it all run for us. So they're called the CAPIs, after ClinCapture. Stars of Data Management, September 24th. In Seattle, Washington. So come see us there.
Your neck of the woods. Last thing I wanted to ask. Okay, so a couple more. Data managers.
Yeah.
Okay, I get asked this all the time, and I'm not qualified to answer. What do they actually do, and who are they hired by?
Okay, so I may or may not be qualified to answer either data, and I say that because data managers are it's a very tough job. It's a very underappreciated job. So I guess I in advance kind of apologize and ask for permission at the same time to speak on their behalf. But the data managers are really the ones running the trial from the sponsor, the CRO, in terms of oftentimes configuring the EDC. Sometimes the data managers do the study build. Certainly to managing the data is somewhat obvious by the term. And then they also are involved with making sure that ultimately there's clean data coming out for the stats folks and so forth that ultimately is going to be submitted. So the data managers are really our primary users in terms of build configuration. And then of course the sites though are the other key component. Site users have to find the software easy to use as well.
But I am curious, do you have what would you say, if you have any, your largest complaint about the industry from your vendor perspective?
Largest complaint?
Yeah, the timeline, the lack of studies? I mean,
I think it is the slow adoption of technology. So I think in general, it's understandable because we have a lot of additional challenges with regulatory, with system validation and so forth. But a lot of regulated industries are moving forward very quickly, finance and so forth. So I think that it makes sense for clinical research to move forward, technologically speaking as well. And I think there will be, an inflection point after which that happens very quickly.
so what's the holdback? Is it the FDA or is it the sponsors?
I think it's the mindset.
So sponsors.
So
Or both.
maybe it's maybe it's just an entrenched mindset. I don't think that regulatory is necessarily holding folks back, but maybe folks are still stuck in the mindset that it is. So they're kind of stuck in the past a little
Took
bit.
quite a while to move from paper to EDC, right?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
It took like a good decade for that to happen.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
All right, well, thank you both very much for this interview, shedding some insights into trends and innovations in the industry. And we'll have you guys on again, maybe episode 200 something. So thank you both. What's your website? Where do people go connect with either one of you? LinkedIn would be good for both.
LinkedIn's great.
Okay, and then the website,
ClinCapture.com. ClinCapture.com. You can email me at CEO@ClinCapture.com or find me, Scott Widely, on LinkedIn.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you. And thank you, Chris. Thank you, Carlos. And we'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.